Hello friends, and welcome back to this course titled as Introduction to Indian Writing in English. Friends, we started our journey in Unit 1 with the poet who is named as Nassim Ezekiel. We talked about his poem Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. in Unit 1. In Unit 2, we talked about another poem of the same poet. The poem is titled as Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. After that, we have completed first and second unit, and now we are moving to Unit 3, which has again a very seminal text, again a very interesting text. The title of this text is Swami and Friends. Well, the writer of this text is R.K. Narayan, one of the founding pillars of Indian writing in English. We will talk about the origin of Indian writing in English also in this class. But before that, let us talk about the outcomes you are going to learn from this lecture. You will learn to employ an insight about the oeuvre of Indian writer R.K. Narayan with the help of this lecture. Friends, R.K. Narayan, the name is very renowned, very proficient. He is one of the leading figures of Indian writing in English. He do not need any introduction. But as we have to discuss Swami and Friends, so before discussing the text, this novel Swami and Friends, we have to talk about the contribution of this writer R.K. Narayan. We have to talk about R.K. Narayan as the leading figure of Indian literature in English. It was during the middle of the 20th century. Middle means around 1950, because students sometimes get confused about the time period of any century. So 19th century means 1801 to 1900. 20th century means 1901 to 2000. So when we talk about Indian writing in English, we are generally talking about the 20th century, that is 1901 to 2000. Although there are writers prior to 1901 also, but we generally consider into, let's say, the category of Indian writing in English, the writers who had written and popularized Indian way of writing, Indian style of writing in the entire world between 1901 to 2000 and even after 2000 in the present century. It was during the middle of the 20th century that India emerged as a power of reckon within the world of English literature. This is right, friends. Why? Because India got independence in 1947. Earlier, India was a British colony. Prior to the British colony, India was under the rule of Mughals. And then there were many, let's say, regional kings and queens who were governing, but not the people, not the democracy which came into India after 1947. So the true rule of the people, the government which is, let's say, nominated by the people, common people themselves, they were, let's say, came into existence in 1947. And which is why India came into the reckon of the world. India came into the, let's say, group of English literary, let's say, community in the middle of the 20th century. The major Indian-born writers who brought India to the world map of English literature were Mulk Raj Anand, Raja Rao and R.K. Narayan. Friends, if you have little understanding of Indian writing in English, then you would well know that there are three founding pillars of Indian writing in English. Those three founding pillars who popularized Indian way of writing, who popularized Indian writing in English, in the entire world are Mulk Rajanand, Raja Rao and R.K. Narayan. So, which is why whenever you read the syllabus of Indian writing in English course in any university of the India, friends, you will have these writers as, or maybe two of them or maybe all three, their texts must be, let's say, present in that course of Indian writing in English. We cannot neglect them. They are founding pillars of Indian writing in English. It is important to mention about R.K. Narayan, who was born in 1906 and who unfortunately passed in 2001. So, he was there for 1 year in this present century, 21st century, specially above the other, as it was his work that formally introduced Indian English literature to the world as we know it. Well, friends, this person, R.K. Narayan, his major contribution is to introduce this way of writing, Indian way of writing, to the entire world. His works, whatever he has written, short stories, novels, etc., had made people aware in the world that this is the thinking of India. This is the lifestyle of India. This is how the Indians behave in different situations. And which is why I can say that the R.K. Narayan was the one who made people aware about Indian culture, Indian civilization and rich heritage of Indian way of living. Narayan's first publication was a book review of development of maritime laws of 17th century England. So, this was his first publication. I suggest you to definitely read, and this will make you understand that how R.K. Narayan, let's say, evolved from his writings. He initiated as an amateur writer in this work, development of maritime laws of 17th century England, and then he emerged as, let's say, one of the leading writers of Indian writing in English. Later he wrote Swami and Friends, which was centered on the fictitious town of Malgudi. Well, friends, fictitious town means this town do not exist in India. This is created by R.K. Narayan. And then there are other writers also. Let's say there is some writer who has created a fictional town of Wessex into his writings. So in the same way, such kind of experiment is done by many other writers into world literature. And R.K. Narayan has adapted this technique, and he gives, let's say, the space to this microcosm, Malgudi, to the Indian context. This text, Swami and Friends, is related to the nitty-gritty or the routine affairs of the people of this small town, Malgudi. The people have their lifestyle. This place, Malgudi, is the entire world to them. There are many characters who had not even went out from this place, Malgudi, and in their entire life. So, you have to understand that this place, although a small town, was very popular among the people of Malgudi. It was bread and butter to live the life in that way at that place. After getting married and joining the newspaper, The Justice, as a reporter, he came in contact with Graham Greene. Well, friends, you know that Graham Greene was one of the leading figures into literature of 20th century. And R.K. Narayan fortunately came into contact of this writer Graham Greene when he was working as a reporter in a newspaper, The Justice. So you can understand, friends, that R.K. Narayan was again a versatile personality. He was a journalist, he was a reporter, he was a writer, he was a creative writer, and many other characteristics were there into his personality. Graham helped Narayan publish Swami and Friends and his subsequent works like The Bachelor of Arts and The Dark Room. Well, friends, if I talk about the most popular works of R.K. Narayan, I must say that not only these three which are mentioned here, The Bachelor of Arts, The Dark Room, or Swami and Friends, there are many more. If you read one work, your mind will ask you to read the next work. And then when you complete the next work, your mind will ask to read the third work, and then the fourth one, and then the fifth one. And then till you complete reading all the works of R.K. Narayan, you will not stop. They are so interesting, they are so beautifully presented that it gives a glimpse of the Indian way of thinking. His books have always portrayed social problems, from corporal punishment at school to male oppression in marriages. Well, some situations may be, let's say, very limitedly found into the Indian context, to Indian society. But they also need some representative to present their problems. And R.K. Narayan was the one who grabbed this opportunity. Now, some of his books have portrayed the social problems into Indian society. Some talked about the corporal punishment into the Indian society. And then some talked about the school male oppression and marriages. Well, friends, all of us had attended schools. We know that there are various kind of punishments, corporal punishments, which teachers give us into the schools. Maybe in schools of European countries, they have different kind of punishments, let's say financial penalty or something. But in Indian schools, it is very common that the physical punishments are given to the students. And such punishments have got a very huge weightage into the works of R.K. Narayan. Along with that, there are few issues, maybe humorous. You may find it humorous, but they are serious issues for the characters. Let's say male oppression in marriage. You generally think that females are oppressed after marriage or during the marriage because the parents have to give dowry to the, let's say, family of males. But then there are cases where males are considered as, let's say, oppressive into the marriages. And R.K. Narayan has well dealt into his works. And all these things, all these characteristics make him actually a prominent figure into Indian writing in English. After his wife's death, unfortunately, friends, it happened that the wife of R.K. Narayan passed away at a very early age. And he did not get demotivated after her death, but he continued writing different kind of, let's say, beautiful works. He wrote English Teacher, a book that translated his grief. Now, friends, all of us know that R.K. Narayan also taught English. And the agony, the dilemma of English teacher, the teacher who teaches English, is well presented into this book, The English Teacher, written by him after his wife passed away. So, with this point, friends, we can understand that R.K. Narayan's works are very autobiographical in nature. We can find the ideas, the dilemmas, the problems which are going on in the mind of the writer in the form of his writings, his characters. The work actually turned out to be a part of an unintentional trilogy that includes Swami and Friends and Bachelor of Arts. Friends, although R.K. Narayan did not intend to write this trilogy, but somehow it happened that first he wrote The English Teacher, after that he wrote Swami and Friends, and the third book which he wrote is The Bachelor of Arts. And these three books became the most famous trilogy written by R.K. Narayan. His works are to a great extent autobiographical, with characters named differently and the story set in the fictional town of Malgudi. As I told you, friends, that there is lot of autobiographical element in the works of R.K. Narayan. There are characters who are representing the dilemma of Narayan himself. And then there are various stories which are set in the fictional town of Malgudi. Can we say that R.K. Narayan is not satisfied with the system of this present world, the world in which he is living, and which is why he wants to create his own world, and he has created his own world of Malgudi, where the complete social setup, cultural setup, the character portrait, and all of these kind of setup, they belong to the mind of R.K. Narayan. The thing which are well suiting to him, he has tried to create that kind of image in this work. He published his short stories under the title Malgudi Days. Well, very famous, friends, and there was a serial also, a series of videos on the, let's say, episodes of Malgudi Days, which became very famous and widely viewed through, let's say, Indians in India when that serial used to come, and the complete series is also available on YouTube. Friends, I suggest you must watch that video series. That will help you in understanding Indian culture, Indian way of thinking a little more than what you already know. The Financial Expert is considered as Narayan's magnum opus. Magnum opus means something which is commendable, something which is completely, let's say, different from the leak. The writers were writing in India, but the way R.K. Narayan wrote this work, The Financial Expert, it was completely different from the way other writers were writing in India. Followed by his fictional take on the Indian independence movement titled Waiting for the Mahatma. Well, friends, like I told you that R.K. Narayan has written many famous works, and one of them is Waiting for the Mahatma. R.K. Narayan, through this work, was able to compile the complete Indian national movement and the spirit with which people were struggling in India to get independence. And in this way, friends, I must say that if you want to know about the impact of Mahatma Gandhi on Indian culture, on Indian society, on Indian people, then you must read this work. This work is a seminal text talking about the, let's say, spirit which was there in the mind of the people during Indian national movement. His works were published by the Michigan State University and later by the Viking Press. Friends, these two, Michigan State University Press and Viking Press, friends, they are one of the most famous publishing houses in the world. And if they have adopted, if they have, let's say, asked to publish the books of R.K. Narayan, it means there is something in the works of R.K. Narayan. The people in the world want to read about the works of R.K. Narayan. The people in the world want to know what R.K. Narayan has to say about India. And in this way, we can understand that there was one writer among us who was our own, who was an Indian, who belonged to India, and who in true spirit popularized the Indian way of thinking. It was this time when he wrote the story called The Guide that won him the Sahitya Akademi Award. Well, friends, I cannot even think that any person in India had not watched that movie, The Guide, in which there was Devanand playing a very memorable role of guide, Raju Guide, into that movie. And that movie was formed on the novel The Guide written by R.K. Narayan. When R.K. Narayan wrote this work, The Guide, he got the Sahitya Akademi Award for it. Well friends, if I talk about literature in India, Sahitya Akademi Award is the most prestigious award one can get, a writer can get into India for his or her works. And if R.K. Narayan has got it for the guide, it means this work, this novel means something. It has that kind of depth which suggests the very Indian spirit. The story was also made into a film that won him the Filmfare Award for Best Story. When this film was produced, friends, the writer won the Filmfare Award for Best Story. The film won the Filmfare Award for Best Story. There were many other awards also to the team, but we are not here to name all those things because Sahitya Akademi is the most important, let's say, achievement a writer can get into his life. Other awards also R.K. Narayan has received. Let us talk about them. He won the Padam Bhushan and Padam Vibhushan, the A.C. Benson Medal, and a membership of the American Academy of Arts and Letters. Well friends, the most prestigious membership into America, and then the most prestigious, the most reputed awards in India, they are given to a person, R.K. Narayan, about whom we are going to talk in the coming units. Padam Bhushan, Padam Vibhushan, you are very familiar about these awards. Then A.C. Benson Medal, again if you read about it, this is given to very few people. And then we have membership of American Academy for Arts and Letters, again a very famous one. He was also nominated for the Nobel Prize but never won it. Well, it doesn't matter. The more important thing, friends, is that he was nominated for the Nobel Prize, the most prestigious award in the world, which is given to a writer, to a literary critic, to a, let's say, creative writer. And if he is nominated for that award, it means his writings means something to the world. Narayan, regarded as one of the big three among the Indian novelists in English, has been admired for his remarkable for telling stories portraying memorable people of small oddities and eccentricities and his humor. Well, who are the big three? Like I told you, Raja Rao, R.K. Narayan, and we have one more with us. We have discussed these three names earlier also, and Narayan is regarded as one of the big three. We cannot demean, let's say, any one of three. Let's say Raja Rao was inferior to R.K. Narayan or R.K. Narayan was inferior to Raja Rao, but all three have equal weightage into Indian society. And the stories which R.K. Narayan had told about the Indian way of thinking, the Indian lifestyle, they are talking about the small oddities and eccentricities, and for his humor, he must be appreciated. Although the humor is not visible, but humor lies in every line. If you read the work, you will understand that. Narayan's fiction rarely addresses political issues or high philosophy. Like generally writers talk about the high philosophy, high morals, Narayan never talk about all these things. He rarely talk about political issues happening into India or into, let's say, other countries, and also he do not talk about the high philosophy, high morals, but what he has to say is something related to the common people issues, the issues related to our day-to-day lifestyle, routine lifestyle, and thus I must say that R.K. Narayan is in true sense a person who is Indian in his core of his heart. He writes with grace and humor about the fictional town Malgudi and its inhabitants and their little lives. Little lives, why friends? Because Malgudi is a very small town. The characters are just like we find in our, let's say, community. If we belong to some small town, there are characters who are neighbors to us. There are characters who are peasants, farmers, shopkeepers, common people, and the nature, the character portrait of those people is well portrayed into the works of R.K. Narayan. Narayan's comic vision is ironical. Well, friends, I must say that the way R.K. Narayan presents comedy, it is ironical also. There is a pinch of irony into it. The way he presents the characters, it has a message to convey. And we have to understand that message when we get to know about the various critical opinions which writers had presented on the works of R.K. Narayan. His all-embracing irony, which includes the particular social context in his men and women who have their various transactions and existential reality based on their particular experiences. Well, friends, different people had different experiences, and their mindset is created on the basis of those experiences. And when their mindset is created, their language is created also on the basis of those experiences, and then how they are behaving in the society, that is also, let's say, modified, channelized and created on the basis of those circumstances. So the pinch of irony which is visible in the behavior of these characters is due to the social context in which Narayan puts these characters, men and women, into the Indian society. Narayan evokes a unique diction of unusual freshness. There is, friends, an unusual freshness into the works of R.K. Narayan. When you read them, you feel happy, you feel satisfied, you feel overjoyed. All the tensions from your mind, all the stress from your mind will go away when you will try to understand the unique diction of the unusual freshness which Narayan is able to use through his works. There is a rare ingenuity with English literary idioms which R.K. Narayan is habituate of using. Well, friends, you know that in every language there are a set of idioms and phrases. In English also, in Hindi also, we have those idioms and phrases. And when R.K. Narayan is talking about those idioms and phrases, he gives a glimpse of the Indian, let's say, the culture and civilization. Narayan is the most objective writer among the Indo-Anglican novelists. He is the most objective writer. Most objective means he is not always talking about the ecstasy of passion into his works. He is objective. His characters are realistic. His characters are down to earth. They have their whims and fancies, but those whims and fancies are related to their money making, their survival, their lifestyle, and in this way, the characters are the mouthpieces of R.K. Narayan, and R.K. Narayan is also proved as a very down-to-earth person with the, let's say, understanding of his characters. This very objectivity reflected in Narayan's approach to his subject matter. The subjects which Narayan chose, the setting which Narayan chose, the background which Narayan chose, the characters which Narayan chose, they are all reflecting the objectivity which is visible in the behavior of R.K. Narayan. In most of the Indo-Anglican novels, Indo-Anglican means the novels which are talking about the Indian setting and, let's say, talking about the other settings also. In most of the Indo-Anglican novels, there are number of characters and incidents woven round young hero and heroine, and it ends with a happy ending. Well, friends, whenever we are reading any work, we generally want the happy ending, the protagonist must feel happy, the hero and heroines must feel happy at the end, and there must be very, let's say, less space given to the pathos or, let's say, sadness or negativity into the works. Well, I must say that when we study the works of R.K. Narayan, all these characteristics are visible into his works, and which is why there is a pinch of positivity which flows from the very first line to the last line in the works of R.K. Narayan. But Narayan's approach is entirely different. Well, can we say that Narayan is always believing in happy ending? Or he has no approach, he has no point of view, he has nothing to say from that? Well, this is not right. Narayan starts with an idea of character and situation, and the plot progresses on the line he conceives to be the logical development of the idea. Well, friends, all of us know that the characters develop logically into the circumstances. There is the evolution of character. When we read about the character in the very first chapter of a novel and how the character behaves at the end of the novel, we find that there is an evolution of a character within a character, and that evolution happened because of the situation, because of the circumstances which that character has faced in that work. It means no marriage, no happy ending, and no hero of standardized stature. Well, friends, when we talk about R.K. Narayan, can we say that there are no marriages into the works of R.K. Narayan, there is no happy ending into the works of R.K. Narayan, and there is no hero of standardized stature in the works of R.K. Narayan? Well, friends, you have to explore by reading the works of R.K. Narayan, and when you will read them, you will understand that there is no set pattern which R.K. Narayan follows into his works. A new work with a different kind of setting, then another work with a different kind of ideology. So we cannot generalize the works of R.K. Narayan. He has shown his versatile creativity into his works. In the Swami and Friends, the hero is just a young boy doing nothing brave or noble or adventurous. Well, friends, when we start reading a work, we think that there must be something heroic, something more than the common life, something grand, something pompous, which must happen in the work. But there is nothing as such which is visible and which is done by the hero in this work, Swami and Friends. The hero is just a young boy. He is a chap. He is a boy who is going to the school. He is doing nothing brave. But their small steps are also considered as brave. Take for example, if there is a child and the child jumps from a 1 feet wall, 1 feet high wall, then that act can also be considered as an act of bravery for that child. So we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the hero, and only then we will understand that how children used to behave during their school and in their, let's say, routine life. There is nothing adventurous, but the adventure lies in the thought process of the child. The hero of the Bachelor of Arts, Chandan, is an ordinary college student. Well, friends, this character Chandran in the Bachelor of Arts, he is a college student, a common college student, but he has to say something different from his personality. This character Chandran, although he is not very brave, he do not do any kind of, let's say, great deeds like kings and queens, but even then he has to convey some message from his acts, from his behavior. The heroes of Narayan do not approach the conventional heroic type. Conventional heroic type means doing great deeds, very brave in their life. Let's say they are living larger than life. This is not the case with let's say, characters of R.K. Narayan, they are not very conventional into their approach, but they are fresh, they are new, their personalities are different. Since the action of the stories of Narayan logically springs from characters such as accident, coincidence, sudden reversal of fortune have no place in the plot of Narayan. Well, friends, I must say that we generally in our life think that the transformation of a character happens after some accident, or maybe after some coincidence, or maybe after some sudden reversal of fortune. Maybe a person is living in misfortune and then, let's say, a lottery happens into a person's life. A reversal of fortune happens into a person's life, and then the complete story changes. But friends, this is not the case with the stories of R.K. Narayan. The characters, they live their routine life and they learn from their routine activities. There is nothing shocking happens into the story, but even then you find the, let's say, modification of character at the end of the story. Narayan gave a picture of life unaffected by any desire for dramatic efforts. And this is real in our life also, friends. Take for example, if we start our motorbike in the morning and we think of going to our office, we never think that in the way we will find some lady who is teased by the, let's say, villains, who is teased by some criminals, and we are going to save that lady. We just want that if there is a 15 minutes duration to reach our office, we must reach our office on time in the 15 minutes time, and in this way there is nothing dramatic we expect, there is nothing dramatic effort which we want to put into our routine life. Although sometimes some damages happen, some accident happens in the way, but we do not expect about it. In the same way, R.K. Narayan's characters are also living that kind of, let's say, unaffected, desired life, unaffected, let's say, dramatic life into their routine, and thus this is very simple kind of stories which is presented by R.K. Narayan through his works. His stories are conditioned entirely by the logical demands of the situation or character. Can we say that there is some logic in the works of R.K. Narayan? Obviously, there is some logic, but that logic lies in the situation. That logic lies in the routine conditions, and those logics, those conditions change the personality of the character, and the character evolves, the protagonist evolves from those, let's say, logics and those common conditions. The first novels of Narayan, Swami and Friends and Bachelor of Arts, illustrate this point. As I told you earlier also, that in Swami and Friends, we have a schoolboy who is a protagonist, who is a hero. So whatever activities he is performing can be considered as adventurous, but not very grand, but even then they are adventurous for a kid. Same applies to the Bachelor of Arts, where there is Chandran, who is a, let's say, college student. He is not doing any, let's say, heroic deed, just like saving the heroine from 10 villains or 10 criminals, but even then his acts are considered as very heroic, as very adventurous, as very life-changing. The central theme of either novel is growth towards emotional maturity, which involves a crisis. There is a, friends, emotional maturity which is visible in the works of R.K. Narayan. The characters mature themselves on the basis of the growth, and that growth comes under the influence of some consequences, some circumstances, and in those situations the theme grows itself, the characters grow itself. Some of his novels deal with characters who strive to realize their absurd aims and ambitions irrespective of the consequences? Well, friends, when you read all the works of R.K. Narayan, you will see that there are some characters who are dealing in realization of absurd aims and ambitions. These aims and ambitions may be absurd for you when you read them, but they are reality for those characters. They are reality for their life. And thus, you cannot consider them as absurd, as different. Those characters want to live in those situations, those ambitions, irrespective of the consequences. Friends, this is very important, that when you have a dream, when you have a goal, even that goal is absurd, even that dream is absurd, you must not think about the consequences, but you must act upon it. Act means you have a target, you have a set goal to achieve, and when you think about that goal, do not think about the world, do not think about the society, but move ahead and achieve that goal. There are others who, in spite of the obstacles, obligations, and limitations placed over them by the bonds of family and restricted by a strict social code, strive to realize their aims and ambitions irrespective of the consequences. Friends, as I am an Indian, I know about the Indian society, how much society influences and interferes into the personal life of an individual, how much relatives, how much your family members, how much the people around you tries to interfere into your life. The culture in India, the society in India, the lifestyle in India is, let's say, created in such a way that you cannot do anything in an isolated manner. You have to bear the consequences of that. Sometimes it happens that you are chasing for some goal and your friends leave you in between. People stop talking to you. People do not, let's say, be affectionate towards you. But you have to bear those consequences and you have to focus on your goal. You have to focus on your target. And that is what Narayan's characters were able to do in these works. So friends, now when I talk about the prominent figure into Indian writing in English, I said that R.K. Narayan was one of those writers. When we read in between these slides, we found that R.K. Narayan knows about Indian culture. R.K. Narayan knows how Indians think. And if some shocking situation occurs, how Indians will behave. It means that he is a very minute observer, friends. And that is the basic characteristic which a writer must have. There are many people who see something happening in the society, but they do not react to it. They do not introspect to it. They do not think about it. They do not minutely observe it. But R.K. Narayan is the one who had observed happening everything around him. And when we read the works of R.K. Narayan, we understand, we get a deeper insight into the Indian way of living. So friends, in this I hope that you have understood that how much, let's say, depth the works of R.K. Narayan have, and you will understand that why we have introduced this work Swami and Friends written by R.K. Narayan into this course titled as Introduction to Indian Writing in English. I hope I am able to justify the, let's say, stature of R.K. Narayan in this short presentation, because the words are endless. We cannot define the personality of R.K. Narayan in such a span of, let's say, limited time, but I was able to do it just because I know a little bit about R.K. Narayan, and I was able to convey that information to you as, let's say, as a student. Thank you for listening. That is all for today.